Hello! Welcome to the next episode of Guitar Stories. Today we are at the Proxima Club in Warsaw. We'll witness concert of real master of guitar, master of progressive guitar. I heard Steve Vai is in awe of his playing. We are at Plini concert and he's with us here. Welcome! Steve Vai is impressed with your playing. And are you impressed with Steve Vai?
Yeah, when I was first getting into electric guitar, Steve Vai, Joe Satriani, John Petrucci were like my heroes. So for me to make music and eventually have it be listened to by Steve Vai was like the best thing ever, basically.
Was it Steve Vai who inspired you to pick up the guitar? Or was it someone else?
Lots of different guitarists. When I first started, I was mostly just into like Green Day and Blink-182 and all the kind of simple stuff. And then I found metal and I found guitarists like Steve Vai, and that's when I got like kind of very nerdy about trying to get better at electric guitar.
You play progressive music. What is it about progressive music that pop or rock music doesn't have?
The thing I love about trying to make progressive music is it feels very free. Like you can do anything, you can take stuff from other genres, and you shouldn't have to be worried that it doesn't sound like pop or like R&B or like jazz. You can kind of just follow whatever interests you, and I kind of make fun out of it, and that's why I like it.
There are no vocals in your music. Is your guitar meant to be in the foreground, or is it just one of many instruments?
A bit of both. The way I write music, I kind of think of the lead guitar as the vocals, but I also make a lot of space for everyone else to have some spotlight. One of the things I love about my band is they're all way better than me at their instruments. So a lot of the time I'll just be playing something very simple and they'll be going crazy. And so I imagine the audience will spend as much time looking at everyone else as they will at me.
Your music is an inspiration for many kinds of art. Do you think it is better to listen to your concert with closed eyes or watch closely what you all do on stage?
I think both could be different experiences. For someone that plays an instrument, it might be quite interesting to see how it's actually done. Or for someone that doesn't play an instrument but likes live music, like we have a light show and that sort of thing. And then like I love, whenever I find a new album from an artist that I really like, I try to make sure I have time to listen to it with no distractions, like basically in the dark or with eyes closed. So hopefully it's kind of interesting either way.
I think many concert goers today will wonder which part of your performance is strictly planned and which part is improvised.
The set list is pretty fixed, but each song has different moments where they improvise. Like there's a song that has a drum solo that's different every night. At the end of the set we do a big jam which is totally improvised, but I'd say it's about 70 or 80% like practiced songs and then some moments to sort of mess around and see what happens.
Do your songs have constant structure or do you mix it up live?
It's definitely from A to Z, and there's like B, C, D, E, F, it does everything. But it's quite, I spend a lot of time thinking about like how the song should flow from part to part.
Tell us about your guitar.
Yeah, so this guitar is my signature Strandberg guitar. This is the only one that exists at the moment. So I've had a guitar with them for I think 6-7 years now, and we've kind of every now and then think of something new to do to it. So this is the first time I've had one that has the single coil neck pickup, and it's the first time they've put a whammy bar on this body shape, and it's also the first time I've had the true temperament frets. So this one in particular, I kind of found all these different things that I wanted to try and just asked, can you make this? And so they did, and I think eventually it'll become a production model as well.
What's so special about this guitar? There are thousands of instruments on the market. What made you choose this one?
When I first picked up a Strandberg, I can't even remember, almost 10 years ago, it just felt really nice. And that's what I always recommend to people who are looking for a new guitar, is to just play as many things as you can until you like one. And it doesn't even really matter why you like it, just the fact that it feels good and it makes you want to play more probably means it's a good guitar for you to have. So that's how I felt when I first started playing them. And since I've become sort of like friends with the company, it's just kind of gotten better and better.
Do you like to tinker with your guitar? change pickups or electronics, try new things? Or do you pick up instrument as is and just play it?
I have no skills at all doing the tech work. I like trying new things. When I get a chance, I'll go and try like a bunch of different pickups and different guitars to find out if there's something I like more. But typically I'm not too interested in it, and if I have an instrument that's fun to play, that's kind of all that matters to me, so I can just play and write music.
Let's talk about your playing. You've got exquisite playing technique, but unexpectedly for some, it isn't the main focus of your music. There's sure more to your songs than showing off your shredding skills.
I guess while I love technical music, I also love simple music, and I think it's more exciting if it takes a few minutes before a guitarist does something cool rather than just it's like non-stop crazy stuff. So I like to have a mix of simple and complicated parts.
Do you listen to music as a whole? Or do you maybe take it apart and analyze individual instruments parts?
When I'm listening to something for the first time, I try to listen to it just as overall as possible, and if I like something, like if it makes me feel something, then I'll listen to it over and over again because I like it, and then I'll start to think like, why do I like this? What's happening? That like, is there a sound that's really cool? Is there a chord that's really cool? And then I'll start to get more analytical because that's when I want to steal something from it, basically. But when I first listen, I'm trying to just appreciate it on the whole and see how it makes me feel.
What would you advise to people who are on your concert for the first time? Should they focus on your lead playing or whole band experience?
Definitely the overall music. I would say try and stand near the sound desk because there's not going to be a mosh pit or anything too exciting. So just stand somewhere where it sounds good and you can see, and just watch whoever is interesting. Usually when I go to a concert, I watch the drummer the most. And like, my drummer's awesome, so feel free to not look at me at all.
Tell me, how do you practice? Do you even need to practice anymore? Or you just know how to warm up in 5 minutes and don't need hours of exercise?
I haven't practiced like seriously for a really long time because I don't enjoy it that much. But when I'm writing music, I'll try to do something that I haven't done before, and then as I'm trying to record it, I'll spend like hours or days or however long it takes to build up that certain technique. And then when we're doing a tour, I'll practice a lot, just playing the songs before the tour. But it's rare that I'll sit down and just practice a scale or something like that because I just get bored.
How important is music theory for you? Are scales useful for improvisation?
I find it useful to have a basic understanding, just because if I'm writing something and I know what scale or key a certain part's in, it's maybe faster to write the other parts. But overall, I try to make everything sound good, and it doesn't really have to matter why it sounds good or what scale it is.
Do understanding of the scales helps understand music and improvisation?
I think yes, maybe it's a great starting point, but it also might lead you into the trap of playing the same things over and over again because they're comfortable, which I would say isn't like real improvisation. But I guess the more you know, the more you can choose what you want to incorporate. But like at the end of the show tonight, we have a big jam and you'll hear Jakob improvise, and it sounds like he just knows everything there is to know about the guitar. And he doesn't even look at the fretboard. So it's hard to say whether that's knowing scales or just having an amazing ear.
When you write new song, what is the starting point? Do you begin with melody, riff, or scale?
It's almost always first chords or a riff. So I'll come up with a chord progression either on the guitar or keyboard or something, and then start to figure out like what the groove should be or what the tempo should be. And then once I have those two things, then I can start playing around with like putting it on different instruments, whether the chords should be played like chords or turn into a riff or something like that. But it usually comes from something like harmony based.
Do you write also the parts of other instruments? Or do you let your musicians' ideas surprise you?
Yeah, as I've been writing in the last few years, because I've been playing with the same band and they also record on the albums, I'll tend to program something quite simple for their parts and give it to them to kind of do whatever they want for the recording. And then once we start playing it live, it usually starts out that they're playing kind of similar to what they did on the record, but the more we play it, the more they start to mess around. And there's, especially with the drums, there's a lot of stuff that's like coming into the set, new ideas that do shock me, and that's one of my favorite things. It's often hard for me to stay facing the audience because I want to turn around and watch my drummer.
Do you think the guitar music can still surprise you? Do you try to surprise your listeners?
I think for me, I'm constantly trying to find ways to surprise people. I would say that's probably my main goal in writing music, is to bring together things that I like that haven't been brought together before, and when people listen to it, maybe they recognize stuff, but it should hopefully be surprising and kind of like delightful to listen to. And then for me, I mean, it's obvious because he's on this tour, but my favorite like modern guitarist is Jakob, because he constantly does that to me. I'm like, how the fuck did you come up with any of this?
You do play concerts in a lot of different countries. Are your music received in diverse ways, depending on the country or continent you play in?
Yeah, definitely. There are some places that we've played, like there's a sold-out crowd, but it seems like no one wants to be there. And then there are other places where there'll only be like 100 people that come to the show, but they're extremely excited. There are some places where people move more, and occasionally there's like a crowd surfer, and then others where everyone's standing still. I don't know if I can generalize, because it can change. Like the same city could have a different crowd a few years apart. But it's always interesting to see how people respond.
I think your music demands concentration from listeners. Do you like to play it loud, or do you prefer it a little quieter to be more legible and have more breathing room?
It depends on my mood. I think all music you should be able to listen to like as a main activity, where that's all you're doing, or it's in the background while you're doing something else. Could be super loud or quiet. Like when I'm flying and trying to sleep, I usually listen to Meshuggah, which isn't necessarily the most calm music, but I just find it takes away the plane noise and I enjoy it, so I'll just eventually fall asleep.
Do you play some new compositions live, to maybe test them before recording album?
We haven't done that for quite a while, but I remember doing it a couple of times, and it was kind of nice to see like an unfinished song would work live. But now I think just because it takes so long to learn the songs to the point that we can play them live, it just seems like a lot of work. So we just wait till the song's finished and then add it to the set.
Are you willing to play all of your songs live? Or are there some which aren't best suited for live playing, and why?
I think almost all of them could work. There are some that we avoid because maybe they have like a big piano solo or something like that, and it just feels a bit empty to not have that instrument. There are a few things that are kind of more orchestral and atmospheric that wouldn't really suit the mood of a show like this. But I mean, one day if we played in like a concert hall with an orchestra or something, I probably would put in some of that stuff. But yeah, there's definitely stuff that was written to be part of like listening in headphones and not necessarily something you would see on a stage.
What do you think about condition of guitar music today? Do you think it is possible to play guitar even faster?
Absolutely. There's a guy from Sydney, where I'm from, called Stephen Taranto, and he plays faster than anyone, but also insane string skipping and super clean. He's like, you're wearing a Dream Theater shirt, he's like John Petrucci sped up. And I'm sure there'll be a younger version that comes along in like probably the next 10 minutes, who's even faster, and it'll just keep going forever.
Will it ever stop?
Probably not. It's the same with like the Olympics, the records keep getting broken. It's just we're all evolving to play guitar faster.
How should listeners approach your music? What do you expect the listener to focus on while listening to your records?
I don't think anything. Like I write music because I really enjoy it. So I do it almost entirely for myself and then just put it out into the world and people can take whatever they want from it. They can hate it, they can like half of it, they can hate parts of it and love other parts, and that's doesn't really matter to me because I'm kind of finished. Like once I've finished the song, it's something else. It's no longer really something that matters to me in that way, if that makes sense.
You are a perfectionist. Do you know when to stop when recording your songs? Or are you preparing several versions of the song to later choose from?
Probably a bit of both. It tends to get kind of sketched out roughly, and I'll record all the parts really badly, and then I'll start to record them better and add different parts. And then depending what's happening in my life, like if I go on tour, I might leave it alone and then come back with a new idea and change it a little bit or something like that. But I guess it's kind of like making a sculpture. Like it starts out as just a block and you just chip away at different bits until it kind of feels like that's how it should be. And then at some point you just have to give up or go forever.
What advice would you give to young guitarists? If people want to be like you, what should they focus on? How should they practice?
Try to figure out what it is about guitar or music that makes you the most happy and focus on that. Because I know when I was younger and I just wanted to be better at guitar, but I didn't really know what that meant. So I would try learning different techniques or learning scales or learning songs, and that didn't particularly make me that happy. But then I found like when I was recording music and combining parts together and like hearing what happens when you put drums with a riff, like that's when I started to really have fun. And so now I spend almost no time at all on like learning techniques or anything like that, but whenever I have the time I try to write music and see what I can come up with. So I'd say to people starting out, if you can figure out what you enjoy the most, then you can kind of just do it forever and like never lose the joy from it. So yeah.
What are the most common mistakes that threaten musicians' progress? How to avoid dead ends in a music career?
That's a difficult question. I see some people who maybe have high expectations or expectations that aren't realistic. Like maybe they've been releasing music for a year or two and expect to be able to tour the world and play shows for lots of people, which works for some people and doesn't work for other people. But I think that can lead to disappointment if you're not open to just going with whatever's happening. And I guess like I was saying before, spending time on stuff that isn't bringing you joy because you see someone else doing it, or like if you go on Instagram, you see every guitarist is insanely good. And so I know if I wanted to be as good as all the guitarists that I follow, I would be miserable because there's no way I would ever be that good. So hopefully that's helpful.
What set of songs have you prepared for today's concert? Will we hear mostly new songs?
It's a mix. We're playing about half of the latest album, and then the other half is all stuff from like first EP onwards.
How do you choose what songs to play? Is the setlist constant throughout whole tour, or do you change it depending on the reception?
It's just one, and we just do it the same every night. And it's a mix of trying to build it in a way where it's interesting emotionally for the audience. So I guess the most exciting stuff should happen at the end, but also something exciting should happen in the beginning. And then also just having the songs. I play the whole set on one guitar, but my guitarist and bass player both have switches. So it's kind of arranged so that they play one instrument for like 4 songs and then change instead of having to go back and forth. So it's a combination of, I guess, function and trying to make it like a nice journey for the audience.
You seem like a humble and responsible person. How do you cope with music industry, which often demands some degree of insolence?
I try to avoid people as much as possible because I prefer not to have to do that. So I don't have a record label, I don't have a manager, and that saves me a lot of, in my opinion, just wasting time talking to people who might not have the same goals as I do. When I go on tour, everyone that's with me are my friends, so even if there is a problem, it's really easy to talk about. All the people that I work with kind of have the same attitude of loving what they do and wanting to do a really good job just because they can, not because they have a big ego or something else. So I guess I'm kind of lucky that I've avoided a lot of the typical music industry sort of navigating because I just don't work with other people instead. But I think particularly in this scene or genre, it's nice because the audience appreciates hard work, and you can't be a really bad prog band and then become famous because all the guitar nerds will just be like, it's not that good, I'm not going to listen to it. So it's kind of quite an honest scene to be working in, I guess, as well.
Many musicians think about sellability of their songs while composing and recording them. It's hard to deny that music is a commodity in today's world. Do you think about the reception of your songs while working on them? Or maybe it's just your personal opinion and music taste that matters when you make decisions?
I would like to think that I treat it just as art that I'm making for fun, but I think part of me does think of it as a product. If I make a song that's particularly simple, I might think, oh, that could be on radio or something like that. So I'm not totally outside of thinking like that, but I do want to make sure that everything I make I'm proud of. And then if it also happens that it would be good for radio or good for a music video, then I guess that's a bonus.
I'm very pleased that we could meet and talk. You're such a nice guy.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Thanks.
Thank you.